So, good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Good morning.
So, how are we doing? Good? No party roughness? I know I have a little party
Good work.
roughness. Ah, good luck then today. Oh, this is going to be that simple. Really, don't worry about it. So today we're going to go into a little bit more depth on the RESTful API. I'm not sure who joined the first session. I do see a lot of familiar faces. But what we're going to do right now is actually dig into a couple of scripts, dig into the code, and start with some of the basics. And actually, it's not only me going to do it because I've got some feedback that I was really boring. So now we've got my lovely colleague here, Darren Swift, helping me out as well. Quick agenda. We're going to start with authentication. How do I open up a session so I can actually start and consume the API? We're going to go into bulk VRA deployment. How does it work? Go through the code. Change VIP settings. And build your own recovery plan as a script. So hopefully we're not going to take the full hour and leave some time for like Q&A. I want to keep it as interactive as possible. Just go ahead, please ask any questions if anything pops up. We're going to do it step by step, scripts, CSV files we use. We're also going to show you them in, the scripts in action. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I pre-recorded all the scripts just so Wi-Fi didn't let me, if Wi-Fi would let me down, which will always happen, they're going to work and I can actually show it to you. Now at the end, or actually I'm not sure if it's going to be today, but everyone that's been basically scanned or bleeped, as I say, they will get the scripts in their email box. So every script we have in here that we're going to discuss will be in your mailbox afterwards. So you can start and play around with it. So let's start with authentication. Before you can start and use the API, you need to authenticate yourself. Basically what it does, it creates a session in the API and it leaves it open. And every time you use an API call, you're going to use the session header that you create to authenticate and then execute that API call. So what it basically does, it creates an ID, a session ID, which is called Zerto's session. Actually, I will show you exactly what it looks like. And you're going to use that in every other API call you make afterwards. The session times out after 30 minutes by default. That is tweakable, by the way, if you want that to 5 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever kind of security policy you have. The default is 30 minutes. If there's no activity on that specific session, it times out. You can just recreate a new one, of course, but you have to build in a timeout. Now, this is the actual code that does it. Now, I'm going to try and use this laser pointer. But yesterday when I tried it, it switched. See? That's what happens. So basically what we do, we build the header that we're going to send to the API that needs a couple of parameters like username, password, IP address. We encode that into a base64 header, and we post that to the API, specifically to the session/add part of it. Basically saying, hey, add a session using these credentials. So what we get back, the response we'll get from the API, because the API is basically a person to talk to. So, hey, give me a session. OK, you've got session ID. That's the response we get. And with that response, that's what we use in every other API call we're going to use. So that's base64 encoded. So I'm going to show you exactly how that works. So first of all, this is the actual script. As you can see, I have no password. This is a really secure system. No, actually, I removed it. Because I'm one of those smart guys that uses the same password everywhere. Well, at least in my lab environments, like not in my bank accounts or email accounts. As you can see, it's just a more complex version and added a little bit more stuff to it. Some default stuff. For example, what we have right here is if you have a self-signed certificate, by default, it will not work. So we need to make sure that we say, hey, also accept self-signed certificates. This is the part of the code that actually says that in PowerShell. You'll see that in every script we basically will send to you. And what this will return is the Zerto session ID. So, like I said, I pre-recorded and closed the window with all the videos in it, which is fine. Now, as you can see, PowerShell, ISE, use it. It's great. Like it. Like Darren said, we're simple guys. This is a simple tool. That's good to use. So I'm going to run the script. It's going to start the authentication, and it's basically done. So what I will do right now is actually show you the content of that X Zerto session variable, and there it is. This is the ID. This is what we get returned. This is the session ID I just opened. This is what I'm going to use in every other script I will use. Actually, I think in the next script that Darren will show you, he will actually show you that every time we do that API call, we add that session header just to make sure, hey, I'm using this session to actually execute that API call. And next up is my lovely colleague Darren, who's going to probably take you to bulk VRA deployment, hopefully.
Okay. So bulk VRA deployment, it's a very simple script. All we're going to do is use the authentication piece, which Heisberg has just took us through. Then we're going to read the ESXi hosts from a CSV, place the VRA variables on there. So what data store is it going to? What memory does it need allocated? We're going to install, send the request to the API. We're going to wait 10 seconds and then roll out the next VRA. This is perfect for when you want to roll out multiple numbers of VRAs, and there's also a bulk upgrade one as well, which Heisberg has done also. So the actual CSV file, I'm just going to show you it in here. It's very simple. And the reason that we use CSVs at this point in time, find and replace, sort, filter, copy, paste, it's so much faster than the GUI. In my world, if I'm rolling out more than 4 VRAs, I'm probably just going to script it, to be honest. It's going to be easier. So you can see the points that we have there. So the main one is the ESXi hostname, and then we've got the IP address, the storage, the port groups, and the network attributes that need to be as part of the VRA installation. Now, in the actual script here, it's very simple. Now, a few things that you'll find with our scripts as well is we always name the author at the top and the requirements. So always check that requirements section when you're using our code. It will tell you what versions it's been tested with. Do you need Power CLI? Is it going to go to vCenter? Different elements. You'll also find that we comment and notarize all of the script. We try and make this as readable as possible, not just for your benefit, but also for ours. So when we have to go back and edit this, we understand what flow and logic we actually did. So all we've got here is the host CSV file, which is located in this location. And when we come down in the script, we're just going to build or import this. We're going to do the authentication, and we're going to import this CSV. These are then brought through as objects. So the columns in my CSV are now brought through as objects, and then I can start to post this to the API at the end. In our scripts, you will find as well, it's only this section here. I appreciate it's fairly hard to see this. You only really need to ever configure this part. Everything below is all done and automated automatically for you. So it's very hands-off. Edit the CSV, connect it to your ZVM server. It'll go and authenticate and push what you needed. Now, to actually see this in action, we're just going to have a quick look at the video. Help. What does that say in Dutch?
So this is the part where we switch to Dutch. So dankjewel. Het fijn dat jullie er allemaal zijn.
It's fine. I've got rid
No,
of
it's
it.
just do you like this app?
Oh,
In
okay.
very difficult.
No, not
language.
anymore. So we're just going to have a look here. This is a small lab environment. Obviously, we've got 2 elements here, 2 ESXi hosts with no VRAs, and we're just going to come through and kick off the script in PowerShell ISE. You'll find most of our scripts run with set execution policy unrestricted. If you're having any issues, always check your execution policy as a first step, and away we go. So at this point, you can see the script has been kicked off. We've got a response back in the JSON. We're waiting 10 seconds and then posting the next one, and we'll see the progress bars go along in the ZVM with the installer tasks. Now this does go on a little bit, so I'm just going to skip along so we can actually see this. And finally, at the end of our scripts, obviously the logging file will be updated. We always have an output for logging. Standard best practice when scripting, giving you the ability to troubleshoot if there is any errors going through the code. So we're just going to skip this along a little bit so we can get to the end. And we'll just see that this is now completed. 2 VRAs, very simply installed. All I had to change were the CSVs. Do it across 400 hosts, 40 hosts, 4 hosts. Very, very easy and simple to use. Any questions on the VRA one? Do you feel that's useful? Yeah?
Is the format of the CSV the same as when you export list?
Export list where, sorry?
VRA?
No. I don't believe so. It's a good question. I don't believe it is.
That's a great question.
It's a great question. I don't know.
No,
Is it not? No.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
There's much less data in this.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
So good question, by the way. What you can actually do is actually export the list we have and just adjust the script so it actually uses the CSV file that we export.
Yeah. I mean, you'll get the CSV files as part of these scripts as well, so you don't have to create them yourselves. And in the requirements, in the top of the script, we will also list what columns and details you need to place in the CSV should you not have the CSV as well. So try and make it as foolproof as possible. Okay, over to Heisberg, who's going to, oh, question?
So if you go through and fill out your CSV and there's a typo somewhere where you use the same IP address on a VRA a couple of times, or you omit a field somewhere, is there any type of error checking when it's importing the CSV, or is it more just based on the result of the VRA user? I know the script, it's not like a production script. We don't expect there to be tons in there, but is there any type of
We put try and catch in there, so we will write to the host when there's an error, and obviously that try and catch routine also goes to the logging directory. But to your point, it would be the latter one that you suggested. So we wouldn't do any fault finding on the CSV, but let's say an IP was already being used, then the ZVM is going to report, hey, this IP is already in use, and the VRA installation would fail at that point. Thank you.
Yeah, we're not going to bail out of the script as soon as it fails, which we can, by the way. But this would just continue with the next one with a timeout. Now, you can make it as complex as you want, of course. We haven't. But you can track the progress of the installation and report on that and see only if it's like at 80% I want to start the next one. So those are things you can do.
Yeah.
But this is a fairly straightforward script.
Because there is the alerts, tasks, and events API as well, where you can track certain IDs, etc. Sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, can you add a processor?
Ooh. Could I add that'd be more Power CLI though, wouldn't it? Do you mean to the VRA itself?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you could probably script that in Power CLI, absolutely.
Okay. Can you edit the tweaks file on it?
I don't think so. Sorry? Really? Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. See, I'm learning too. This is good. So the tweak is persistent through the upgrades as well? Perfect. Great stuff. Cool. Okay, Heisberg's going to take us through bulk re-IP on the VPGs.
Yep.
Oh, I think you come out of Preso mode.
Oh, no
There
worries.
you go.
Change your IP set. Actually, it's a two-step approach that we use. The first script we have is an export script, which will export all the settings into a CSV file that we can then easily edit. And the second step is, you might have guessed it, importing that CSV file that you edited into the settings and applying them. So the VPG settings API actually allows you to do multiple edits of the VPG settings and then commit it once afterwards. And the commit will actually update the VPG. You will see updating VPG in the GUI. Now that we're gonna do it. It looks maybe a little bit messy with us going through all the windows and CSV files, but we want to make sure you get all the details around this. So I'm going to go into that CSV file a little bit more, because this is the output. So it has the VPG name in there, VPG identifiers, basically the details we need to actually deploy it on a VPG, names, but also all the VNICs that we have available in that VM. Could be one, could be multiple. And this is where we can edit all those settings, give it a new IP address, gateway, DNS servers, you name it. And again, what Darren said as well, in CSV files, it's just a lot easier to edit them. Especially if you use CSV-et, which you will see in my video of doing this. That's actually a great part. Now, I'm going to dig into a little bit more of the, you've heard us say JSON a couple of times. Now, that's not a special guy. That is the way we send the information to the API. Let me open up the script. Now, I'll take the import script straight away. Again, comment section on top, small README. What do I need? What do I need to set? What's the tables we use? The variables you need to set, and below that is basically all that we need to do. Now, what we're going to do here, again, import that CSV. You'll see us use a lot of CSV files because we love it. And it's really easy to import. As you can see, that command, CSV import. I could have figured it out myself without Google. That's the beauty of it. So import that file, and what we're going to do is actually, out of that file, we're going to build it. We're going to take all those things we need, all the VM NIC details, put them into variables, and then I'm going to walk through all the VNICs with a for each loop, and basically put it into this JSON. And this is what we basically send to the API. So this is the structure of that JSON body that we send to the API. That has all the details in there. It has, okay, failover. What's the failover network? What's the failover test network of that specific NIC? What's the IP address, DNS settings? They might be different for a failover. They might be different for a failover test. So we just import all those settings out of that CSV file and put it into this JSON part of the script. And this is basically sent to the API, that, hey, please perform this for me on this specific VPG using these settings. Now, if I get information out of the API, I can get it in two formats. One of them is XML, the other one is JSON. Some people like XML, some people like JSON. I like JSON because I think it's a little bit more readable than actual XML. But that's personal preference. We can use both. I use Notepad++ to format JSON and make it easy to edit. Some people,
Like me.
don't really like Notepad++. Hey, it's all preferences. But what we do is we send this data to the API. The API knows what to do with it, and it will apply it. Now, again, to make sure we don't have any type of issues in the script, let me quickly.
I'm just going to say on this one as well, I've done this, well, we've done this for a customer, and they actually brought the two scripts together. So the export and the import into one as well. So you can mash them together as well, just to make life a little simpler also.
Yeah, the beauty of that is it's fully automated. the CSV file has a plus that allows you to give it a little bit more control. So for example, with the installation, you can do multiple CSV files, use multiple CSV files, control it a little bit more.
Sorry, did you have a question?
Quick question I have, the VPG identifier.
Yes.
X-ray, whatever it is, that's hard-coded, it's an object ID that maps to a VPG object in the ZDM database.
Yes.
Correct.
I'm not clear, what is the relationship between the VPG identifier
Yes.
and the VPG settings of it? The API.
So, you can compare it a little bit to the way we add a session. So if I authenticate to the API, I get a session ID which times out. So what we need to do is basically open up the API for us to deploy settings, and that's a VPG settings identifier.
Okay, so for each one of these, are you going to create, each row, are you going to create a VPG settings identifier object and then push the settings?
I'll show you in the script.
It's in an array in this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the data is in an array, but I'll show you. I'll take you into a little bit more detail with that, how the VPG settings identifier works. That was really a thing for me too when we had the VPG management API. I was like, oh, okay, let me quickly think about that. But basically, when you create a VPG settings identifier, what you get back is actually an empty framework in JSON on how you can deploy all those settings. So every VPG setting you get in that JSON response. So this is we had one VM, one VNIC, multiple VMs, multiple VNICs, so you get more details in the CSV file. And basically, this is the JSON again. What we do is we're going to change the settings, then we're going to commit those settings. Now let me show you. Let's see if this video works. Okay. I'm going to skip to it a little bit. It's not too long, though. Let me show you the VPG. One NIC. I'm going to show you the settings. Cool guy, this Jason. He does all the videos for me. It's at a 168.40 network right now. Not sure what I'm doing here. Going to show you the CSV file afterwards. And show you one of my favorite tools. Luckily, I put my Skype on Do Not Disturb, because that's Darren hassling me in the background. Oh, actually, I'm showing the export first. This is an extensive video.
Yeah, I think this one's about 3.5 minutes. You can slide the slider.
Yeah. So now I exported it. I'm going to open it up using CSV file editor. Download it. Great tool. Looks like it was built in 1992, but it is version 2017. But it's great if you want to edit CSV files and not hassle too much with Excel, because sometimes Excel messes up the CSV file, and just instead of comma, they're going to use like semicolon all of a sudden. So yeah, so I'm changing the IP addresses now, saving it into the CSV file, and actually this is what we're going to use as soon as we start the import again. Now, I'll definitely show you what it will look like. Hit play. Done. Boom. So it's running. It's updating the VPG because I'm committing those changes right now. This is after the commit set. So I could have changed other IP addresses as well. I could have changed other settings as well, and then could do the commit afterwards. And as you can see, it changed to the .30 subnet. Just as easy as that. Now, getting into the script.
What are you looking for?
Trying to get to the start of my for each loop. So as you can see, for every VPG, who asked the question? You left. I'm going to explain it and then not tell him. So the VPG settings identifier which he asked about, that's the thing we need to create every time we do a change to the VPG is done for every VPG we do that for. Every VPG gets that unique VPG settings identifier where we send that JSON to and where we apply it to. As you can see, I'm doing a for each loop. That means for every VPG you can find in that CSV file. Well, actually, we imported that CSV file. It's now in variables in memory somewhere. For every VPG you can find in that, apply this, do this. Actually, there's another loop in there, also doing it for every VNIC. Any questions? Yes.
If a VPG doesn't have any changes made to it, does it still like save the new settings? Like you'll still see it on your page, or
That's a good question. I actually haven't tested that. I think so, actually. Because we do send that commit. Sorry, yeah, so the question was if you didn't make any changes and you do the commit, does it still show updating in the GUI?
It does.
Yep,
It does because when I was having a problem with this script due to getting a bad request back, and even though the VPG wasn't updating and getting its new settings correctly, it still showed up as a running task and that it had completed, even though it wasn't actually going anywhere, and that's because of the commit that we push at the end of the script.
do you think that would be something that we could like do code out like to check against the current settings in each flow? Obviously, it would make it take a lot longer, but
You know, it's just not put those settings inside the CSV, just take it out of it. Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Because it's
so
only-
that's the
it's gonna
power of
read-
the CSVs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't call the VPG settings identifier for that VPG, is that how it knows? Is that how the task gets kicked off? If the settings identifier gets called for that VPG? Because if you're not making a modification to it, how does it know? Because I mean, when you it doesn't show a running task updating every VPG. So how does it know that VPG was changed, even though it wasn't? Is it because the settings
Be-
identifier
it-
is called?
Yeah, because the settings identifier is opened, basically, because you created it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that means this VPG now is ready to accept changes.
So one thing I ran into whenever we were first starting to use this is we didn't have default network settings or default.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Filled out or this will not work.
Exactly. So
100%, and then commit those as well, else it won't work, yeah.
yeah, so it does. So one of the mandatory things that you need is a default failover network and a default failover test network. If you have not set these, you actually get an error in return saying, "Hey, I need a default network." So then you have to apply them separately. So this happens if, for example, you do a failover, you need to change the IP address settings, then it will leave the default network settings blank.
I was just trying to find it for you. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So in this environment, if you come across, say, in the GUI, you try to change an IP that's already used, myself, on the message, that IP is already used. What happens here? If you make a mistake, put in an IP that's already used.
So
The ZVM would error because part of the VRA installation process, it will check whether that IP is in use. So it would still try to re-IP it, but the ZVM would fail, and you would have a failed task to update the VPG because of that.
So everything you do here follows the same GUI rules, right? Is that accurate to say that?
I would say so. I'm of the opinion, yeah. Are
yes,
you different?
Yes. So if the
Page store that doesn't have enough space left on it, you're good to go.
yes.
Exactly.
Yes, that's part of the, so once you apply those settings, it's going through the update process, and the update process has the validation steps in there. That's more of a back-end process, but it's definitely in there, yeah. So that's error handling is one thing, right? I think I told it in my API session as well. Error handling is really important, also really difficult. But because it returns errors, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's not even part of what the gentleman on the left asked, but that VPG identifier, is that a permanent value in the database, or is that just generated through the session duration?
Yeah, as soon as you commit,
Okay, just a session.
you will need to create a new VPG settings identifier to apply it, yes. Any other questions on this specific example?
Cool.
No? Okay. Next script.
Okay, this is build your own recovery plan. When we added reverse protection into the API, the option came available for us to do a full recovery plan. So this can be either a failover or a failover test. The beauty of this is we can fail over all the VPGs. Just at one execution, we can set the reverse protection, the commit policies, all the different attributes you would normally click around in the GUI to actually fail over. This is the largest script that we're going to show you today. And we've got two elements in here. Obviously, we're going to go through the authentication. And then we're actually going to get the list of VPGs from the API. And again, we're going to import a CSV of the VPGs that I want to fail over or fail over test. Now, I'll walk through the logic in a little detail here. So we're going to get the VPG list, and we've also got the Excel sheet here, which is going to show us the VPGs and the settings which I want to fail over. Now, this script has if statements in there. So if the failover column has failover in there, then the action is going to be a live failover. If it's got test in there, then the action is going to be a failover test. Gives you the ability to actually swap and change it all the way through. And this is why this script is so big, because we've had to build all the logic for live failover and then repeat it all for failover test as well. Yes? Automation at scale. Failover test, you could schedule this and it would run a failover test in your entire environment, stop it, or you could just do a live failover. Yeah. I mean, I personally think the automated test is the most valid use case there, because you get test reminders in the GUI, right? But that requires you, yeah, click, 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 etc.
Yeah, let's say you are in an actual disaster or like failover scenario, you need to fail over everything. Right now, in the product as it is right now, we don't have anything like a VPG start order. So this is something you can use for that. Basically, start your failover with a single command, have timeouts between the VPGs, and start them.
Yeah, so I'm just going to show you this here. So we're just going to have a look at the VPGs. And we should just go back into the ISE. And we're going to run the script. Now, at this point, it's going to ask for the credentials. And that's on purpose. Because this is a powerful tool, we don't want anyone just hitting the play button and do a live fail over your environment. It's going to cost you some serious downtime. So we're going to do the username and password. And we're just using get credential in PowerShell there. And it's going to bring back a list of the VPGs that we found in the GUI, and also the list of VPGs that I've got in the CSV, which are the ones to be failed over in this scenario. Now, we also built in another prompt here just to say, are you sure you want to actually do this? Because a live failover is obviously going to shut down source, power up production, so we just want to make sure that that's in there.
So Microsoft said. We also have an are you really, really, really sure?
Yeah. You can switch that off in the CSV. It's actually a call from the CSV as well. So it's going to fail over the VPG. And once it's failed over, it'll wait 30 seconds, and then it'll do the other one. But there is one more logic step in there. So we'll wait for this VM to come along online. I'm just going to skip the video a little bit, because this does take a little bit of time here. So the VM is the WordPress one there. And what we're doing here is saying, OK, that's been failed over. Did it come online at the other side? Is it OK now to progress to the next VPG to do your failover? And we'll hit continue. We can see the virtual machine is up and running. Well, near enough.
Almost there.
Almost there. It's a powerful lab.
Don't mock my lab.
So we're just looking for the power on cycle, and then we can say that we've got this up and running.
I took this very seriously, so I wanted to make sure that VM started before I press continue.
You have took this really serious.
It is a live failover. Yes?
Did you have any of these
I'd love to see more scripts on GitHub, personally. I know that there is some work that actual customers of ours have done on GitHub as well. But honest answer is not as much content on there as I would like. I'd like to use it more. Would that be the first place you would go? No, it's varied. It's mostly internal, to be honest, at the moment. I'd love to get a community together where people are contributing and code, and you can share what you've done, because you've got all these APIs. If you've thought of a use case that we haven't, then that should be posted in the community and other people can use it. Ooh. You're getting the alert on, the alert off errors all the time. Yeah. 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 I've done that for another customer. We did that. We went a little further. We just got the codes that we're really bothered around, and we filtered everything else out. It runs, executes.
So do you have a template solution from the outset?
Yes. I'll give you my contact details. I'll send that over. I just took the basic stuff, so RPO, VPG status, 0 through 10. That'll give me a list of actually what's happening and certain error codes that I should be alerted with. Yeah. Yeah. No worries. Oh, please.
Yes.
Yes. They won't. I was actually, before I did that with the scripting, I was trying to go about it a different way, but the way that the actual code works, there's no email template in the ZVM install directories. That is actually generated in the code itself. I was trying to filter it out, do something smart other than scripting with it, but scripting seemed to be the only correct answer.
Yes, and please do forward them.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. But to be fair, if you want to, I don't put it in one email. So it is some work, but all the 5,000 should be separate emails. Now, I've been a former Zerto user as well, and I've turned off email.
Whoa, sorry, was that 25,000 in one day?
25,000 one day. I had a disconnected site.
Okay.
And I got literally 25,000 emails from deployments.
I think the valuable lesson.
Can you come with me to the product desk?
Do not enable email alerts.
Honestly, they were already just being redirected to a folder that I didn't look at, so I didn't actually know I was getting them. Somebody else didn't do that. But yeah, I ended up going. I had to turn off alerts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we have heard a lot.
Sir.
Really?
Okay. Actually, closing this session is a little bit difficult. It's not in the API. It will time out after 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30 minutes. You can tweak it, by the way. You can make that 5 minutes. I can send you the tweak. So you can tweak it that it closes sooner. So the answer to that is we're doing scale testing right now with the API. There's been some work. I don't know the actual results yet, actually. We've got other people running into, or actually going to use it in Scale as well and maybe run into issues. Don't have an honest answer yet. But definitely if you could share your details with me, I'll get you hooked up to the Scale guys because they're really interested in input as well. I would say that sometimes, especially when doing a lot of operations automatically using our API intensively, yes, make the timeout a little bit shorter. And another thing is bump, if you haven't already done it, bump the resources of the ZVM. I'm not sure what the resources are right now, but definitely that could help.
Sorry, we got a question on the. Do you have a question?
I just want to ask, is there a limit the amount of API calls you can do in one shot? We tried to Failover like 1,000 VMs in one shot.
Yeah.
It just falls.
How do you mean halts? It fails or?
Well, it literally like that VM like literally fall. Like it's still going in VMware, but like possibly we don't know how many. Like, we tried different timeouts.
Yeah.
We haven't seen. So I don't know if you guys have a threshold. The amount of API calls you've done in one shot.
I would imagine there is, but I honestly don't know. Do you know the amount of sessions we can run concurrently?
No.
ESX host, though, right, at that point, where we scan for the data store and then do all that.
So the vCenter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
We can find out. I can
Definitely.
find out for you. It's a good point.
We've tried to do a massive, like full data center spillover,
Yeah.
and we've come to a point where like we've scaled it to a point where we haven't gone the right way. We tried resources running whatever running just PowerShell, running API calls. We tried it. At the end, we have four CPUs, 16 gigs of RAM. We've monitored SAN, everything.
Yeah.
We still haven't come to a point where like the threshold of API calls is done.
so you do that in like one blow,
One blow.
all VPGs.
1,000 VMs, bang.
We've scripted it where like we're able to disconnect
good.
things, go VPG or VPG or VPG and go through the entire process.
So there is logic built into the ZVM, so when you're doing large numbers like that, we will do 10 virtual machines or 30 volumes, so we will do it in chunks, so you won't see 1,000 VMs trying to power everything on. That is tweakable, by the way, if you're using very fast storage, such as hyperconverged, things like that. We can tweak that down so you're getting shorter RTOs. But if you want to come over to the product team, if they've been testing at scale, then they'd love to have this conversation with you around what you're doing with that. But yeah.
Yes.
Just for what you just said, can the way that gets tweaked be either sent to us or something? Is that something we're actually
Yeah, I think we've wrote an article. We've wrote a knowledge-based article on it as well, so we can forward that to you, yeah. And we've got the results. I believe it was tested on Nutanix. And we've seen, I forget the multiplication figure, but it was a hell of a lot faster than what we was getting beforehand. And this means your RTO
like
is so much
14
shorter.
times.
Let's use the power of the CPU and hardware that's on there. Yeah.
Is there anything tricky about the session authentication, like the token? Sometimes when I run through the scripts, I like to run through them kind of like line by line to like work them out and figure out what it's doing and what I can use that best suits me. But sometimes I find that I'll have to re-authenticate the session like a minute later or 2 minutes later. I'll do it I'll pull some VPG settings or I'll pull a VM setting, and then I have to get a new token and then start again.
What method are you using? Is you using PowerShell?
Yeah.
Okay.
PowerShell.
I
I was just curious if there's something that I'm not doing, you said the session stays open.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's good for 30 minutes.
And you're using our authentication, everything like that? You're using our scripts? Have you wrote your own authentication?
Actually, I'm using your authentication piece in some of my own stuff, but yeah, it's during the
Okay.
Okay. So it's and on the ZVM, it's vCenter authentication, or using like role-based access control.
It is, in this case, it would be its AD credentials against vCenter.
Okay. So yeah, there's
I'd have to have a look at that.
yeah, there's a couple of layers we need to take into account. So by default, sessions stay open for, well, they don't stay open for 30 minutes. They stay open as long as you do stuff. But if you idle it for 30 minutes, then they will close.
Okay, idle for 30 minutes.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
I will, I'll try to find an example of what's happening.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
do.
But
Yeah, definitely.
we can also test it with Postman, things like that as well, to see if it's still live. But yeah, we'll work it out.
In multi-tenancy, can an org user use the API? Short answer is no. long answer would be talk to product management. I mean, we say that a lot because we talk to product management as well. But I think it's much more. I mean, I can think of a lot of features we want and a lot of features we probably need. But getting it from customers has a larger impact. So that's why I'd love to have people actually talk to product managers. Not many times you get the chance to actually talk to the product owners and the product managers. And this is one of those occasions that definitely hassle them. Pin them down.
I just forgot one point with the recovery plan. Very important. It's going to take always, no matter whether it's a failover test or a live failover, it will take the latest available checkpoint per VPG. So just bear that in mind. You will see that in the code. Okay.
Can you specify?
You can if you return a list of them.
Okay.
So we've done that in previous scripts, but we just took the logic that you take your latest one, it will get you up and running faster. There's no more selection, etc.
Did you tell it to look for like a flag checkpoint specific?
Like a tested one, yeah.
Tested one, or maybe something that's used in the VSS staging or something like that.
Ooh, with VSS, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Would it?
Yep. So we actually have another script in our automation white paper about like automated offsite cloning, where you can actually look for the latest VSS enabled checkpoint.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So the logic is in that script.
Yeah.
The logic is in that script. Yeah.
Cool.
So a question over there.
Yeah, there's no VCD API or anything like that, right?
Correct.
So before beating my head against the wall, trying to automate some of this stuff, what problems are there coming out of the face because of that? As far as like failing over REIP, different things with VPG.
So failover should be okay. REIP is different with VCD. So we are working on the VCD API. I know it's going to be there in.
Is it 5?
Now I need to be careful now. It's going to be in one of our next releases. This is way too careful. But I think the next large release, will have the VCD API.
So I could go in and bulk edit and change the IPs that it's going to change.
No, there's no bulk editing right now for VCD. VPG management is vCenter only. So failover should work, but that's only one part.
I could change names. Would I be able to create VPGs?
No. No, the JSON, basically the JSON doesn't have the details to create a VCD API yet, because the backend is not working yet. Again, that JSON guy. Yes?
Are there APIs for failover?
Yes, there are. They're not exposed. But we are working on it. So the tricky part with the failover recovery is that basically the API only mounts the disk. That's what it does. So pulling the data is a little bit more complex. So that's to be continued. Yes. The question is, are we logging the API sessions?
What, the session IDs?
Yeah,
when it started? It'd be in the transcript
just successful
logs.
authentication
Yeah,
in the logs?
yeah, it'd be in the logs.
They're in the logs. Yeah, yes. Oh, no, that's, no, actually, yes. Now I know the answer 100% yes, because I talked about this yesterday with product management. So I was like, so the API is really important, but we didn't have a feel of how many customers actually were using it. Now, by doing these sessions, by talking to you right now, it's a lot more than we expected. So what I would want to see is can we somehow, so we have the analytics portal, so some people send analytics to us. I want to see if people are actually using the API. And it's being logged, so we can actually build analytics based on that. Oh, I'm missing the entire section here.
Exposing the analytics portion.
Yeah, okay.
Fair.
So, point taken. Yeah.
Is there plans for getting
Actually, we were approached yesterday to do monthly webinars around APIs and sharing. So
We did a generic one around PowerShell tips
Yep.
and 10 best practices, etc. But that was just the start. We can go a lot deeper into a particular API with a particular use case, which I think would be useful in a webinar. Again, if we've got that community as well, I'd love to invite customers, partners, CSPs, etc.
Those were all the questions right now.
Is that the introduction, is that on anywhere on your training, like on Zerto? Like finding where
The PowerShell top 10 tips. Yes, it's on Zerto.com under the webinars. It should be recorded on there. Yeah. We explain for each loops, variables, arrays, very basic stuff to start with, but it is a good way to look at the PowerShell code. And it's specific to the way that we've wrote them as well, so you will understand a little better once you go through the flow. There are, but the benefit to using the APIs, of course, is that you don't have to use those commandlets and be limited by them. We're sending the responses to the API underneath. So the commandlets are used in certain places, but not a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.